All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that sounds a little crazy. How a bottle of water can cost as much as a luxury car. And at the same time, why we just can't look away from a good scandal. I know, they seem like totally different things, right? But you'll see, they're tied together by one of the most powerful forces out there, a really good story. I mean, it's a wild question, isn't it? What on earth could a $4 million bottle of water and our addiction to drama possibly have in common? You've got the most basic thing we need to live, and then you've got this endless human love for conflict and gossip. Well, the answer, as we're about to find out, is all about the power of the story we tell ourselves. So, to really figure this out, let's start with the water. Some folks ran this fantastic experiment to answer one simple question. When you buy expensive bottled water, are you actually paying for a better taste? Or is it something else? Okay, so here's what they did. They set up a classic blind taste test. They got a bunch of different water brands with these huge price gaps. I mean, we're talking 35 cents a liter for one, and then all the way up to $6 a liter for another. They poured them out, no labels, and just asked people to try and rank them from cheapest to most expensive based only on taste. And the first results were, well, probably exactly what you'd guess. The most common reaction was just confusion. For most of the participants, water is, just water. They really couldn't tell the difference, especially between the kind of pricey one and the super expensive one. But then, you get this. One person, with absolute total confidence, points to one of the priciest waters and says, oh, this one's definitely the cheap one. It's just a perfect example of how our senses totally mislead us when there's no fancy brand or price tag to tell our brain what to think. So to really hammer the point home, and honestly, to have a little fun with it, the experimenters decided to pull a little prank. They brought in one last participant. But this time, all 5 glasses were filled with the exact same water, just straight from the top. The big question was, would she notice? Oh, she didn't just fall for it. She went all in. She started creating this whole story, detecting these subtle differences that just weren't there. She's like, this one has a hint of iron, and this other one feels smoother. It's the power of expectation, right there in action. When we believe there should be a difference, our brain will literally invent one for us. Okay, so if it's not the taste, then what in the world are we paying for? Well, the secret isn't really about the water itself. It's about the story of the water, where it came from, and how it looks in the bottle. So it pretty much boils down to 2 main types. On one hand, you've got purified water. This can come from anywhere, rain, groundwater, you name it, and then it's chemically cleaned and processed. But then you have spring water. Now this stuff comes from a specific underground source, and it gets filtered naturally by the earth, picking up minerals as it goes. And that's why the spring water costs more. It really comes down to 3 things. First, scarcity. You can only get so much water from one natural spring. Second, logistics. It costs a lot of money to bottle water on a remote island in Fiji or a mountain in Norway and then ship it all over the world. And finally, the packaging itself. You know those fancy, heavy glass bottles? Yeah, those aren't cheap. You're basically paying for the epic journey and the designer outfit. And just to put a final nail in the coffin, the guy running the experiment tried to recreate the recipe for one of the world's most expensive waters. He mixed water from France, Fiji, even Icelandic glaciers. And after all that, the big reveal, he said it tasted like water. See? The value was never in the liquid. It's always been in the story. Okay, so I want you to hold on to that idea of paying for a story. We're going to switch gears for a minute and tackle that second mystery. Why are our brains so completely obsessed with drama? I'm talking about everything from reality TV blow-ups to the latest gossip. What is it that makes conflict so darn compelling? Well, a big part of the answer has to do with a little chemical in your brain called dopamine. You've probably heard of it. It's called the feel-good hormone because your brain releases it as a reward. It's that tiny rush of pleasure you get when you eat a piece of amazing chocolate, or you finally win a game, or you find a $20 bill in an old jacket. And this is where things get really interesting. It turns out our love for drama isn't just, a simple preference. It's actually a biological urge. That exact same reward system can turn a simple story into something we literally start to crave, almost like an addiction. It works in a really simple loop. So, step 1, you hear about some juicy drama, a betrayal, a huge fight, some shocking scandal. Step 2, your brain immediately releases a hit of dopamine. Then, step 3, you feel that jolt of pleasure and excitement. And what happens next? Step 4, your brain goes, hey, I liked that. And you start looking for more drama, just to get that feeling again. And this explains so much about the entertainment we consume, right? A simple, happy story just doesn't seem to cut it anymore. To keep us hooked, shows have to keep ending on these massive cliffhangers or tragedies or scandals. It's all to give our brains that dopamine fix they're craving. It's almost like we've accidentally trained our brains to find regular, calm life a little bit boring. Okay, so on one side, we've got expensive water that tastes like water, and on the other, we have an addiction to drama that's really just an addiction to a brain chemical. So now, let's connect the dots and see how these two things are basically just different sides of the very same coin. And here it is. This is the big connection. With the expensive water, we think we're paying for better taste or purity. But the hidden reality is that we're paying for the story of a remote spring, the fancy bottle. And with engaging drama, we think we're just interested in the people and the plot, but the hidden reality is we're hooked on the biological story our brain is telling itself with every dopamine hit. So whether it's coming from a bottle or from a screen, the real product we're consuming is the story. Just understanding this is a huge step. It's the key to taking back a little bit of control. So the real question is, what can we actually do about it? How can we be smarter consumers, not just of things we buy, but of the media we watch? Well, when it comes to water, smarter drinking doesn't mean buying the most expensive bottle that flew halfway across the world. The real secret is to look for local spring water. You can often get all the same benefits, like those natural minerals, without paying a fortune for shipping and marketing. And for smarter watching, the secret isn't finding more drama, it's having more awareness. By just recognizing that dopamine loop for what it is, you can start to retrain your brain to value peace and calm instead of always needing that hit of conflict. Which brings us to one final, really important question to leave you with. The next time you grab that bottle of water or you click on that next dramatic episode, just ask yourself this: are you consuming the story, or is the story consuming you?